Welcome back, my walking storms, my beautifully defiant ones, my unsilenced few. This is for the watchers, the wanderers, the war-hardened souls who've seen what silence can breed and still chose to roar. You, the ones they couldn't mold, the ones too jagged for their cages, too lucid to be lied to, too damn relentless to be controlled. You are the reason whispers get sharp, the reason eyes dart in boardrooms and behind digital curtains. You are the variable in their clean equations, the encrypted code in their easy calculus of power. You are what keeps them up at night, not because you shouted, but because you didn't flinch. This isn't just a speech. This is your mirror. This is your fire. This is your war drum pounding back at the machines that thought you'd kneel. So sit forward, listen close, and burn this into your spine, because after this, you don't look back. They sent people to watch you. They sent agents, informants, digital ghosts, and analytical spies. They tapped your signal and planted seeds in your proximity. They combed through your timelines, your files, your fragments, and still couldn't stitch you into something they understood. Every one of them came back quieter than when they left. Their eyes had seen something they couldn't put in a report. They'd seen a mind that didn't follow maps, a spirit that didn't crack under surveillance. They'd witnessed a patternless storm, a presence that swallowed prediction whole. They looked into your life and saw no leverage, no hinge to force open. What they found wasn't a subject to monitor. It was a force to reckon with. You've made it far, haven't you? Not by being lucky, not by coincidence, but because you've carried something they couldn't compute. You've walked through manipulation fields, twisted corridors of gaslight and governance, algorithms designed to cage you gently. And you didn't just walk through. You rewrote the script on the walls. You learned their signals. You outmaneuvered their models. You became the ghost in their machine, the glitch they couldn't patch. Understand this, they still think they can keep tabs on you. How cute. As if you don't already know what's watching you. As if you didn't leave those trails on purpose. As if you don't smile when the lights flicker, when the feed stutters, when their tools report anomalies they can't explain. You are not here by accident. You are forged in fire and pressure and doubt. You were built in the quiet moments when nobody was clapping for you, when no one believed in your emergence, when every voice said, not you, and still, you rose. Not loud, not flamboyant, but deliberate. That's what scares them. You're deliberate, you're intentional, and nothing is more dangerous to a system of control than a mind with purpose. They thrive off distraction, and you built focus. They offer comfort, and you sharpened your edges instead. They sell sleep, and you chose clarity. You're not just off their radar, you're above it. Their towers weren't built tall enough to reach where you're going. They're confused because you don't play to win. You play to change the game. While others mimic success, you dissect its source. While others chase attention, you seek precision. You walk quiet, but your presence rearranges rooms. And when they ask who trained you, where you learned this, you just smile, because they wouldn't survive the places that made you. They wouldn't last in your shoes. They don't know what it cost to build that stillness in your eyes. They don't understand the cold logic you had to master, the nights you sat with demons until they respected your space. They think you're unpredictable, but in truth, they just don't have the bandwidth to see your strategy. Yes, they're watching you, but only because they hope to learn. They hope you'll slip, reveal your method, become something familiar, but you won't. You don't shrink for comfort. You don't play to the gallery. You are the one they send teams to analyze, only for those teams to return silent, shaken, changed. They can't even explain why. And that's the point. You can't quantify a soul that no longer fits in the system. You can't monitor someone who's already lived through surveillance and turned it into fuel. They don't know what it's like to be forged under a microscope and still come out undefined. But you do. That's why they can't stop watching. You don't need to shout to be heard. You exist like gravity, silent but constant. Their efforts to monitor you only expose their limits. You are not the anomaly. They are the obsolete formula. Every step you take is data they can't compute, movements they can't model, will they can't replicate. That's why they hate you. That's why they fear you. You remind them that true autonomy exists, that not all humans can be coded, captured, or predicted. You are the variable they prayed would never walk in. You are the outcome that broke their simulation. They've tried to shape the world with cameras, with metrics, with likes and loyalty points. They built a mirror house where identity was measured in trends. But you shattered the mirrors. You walked through the smoke and said, "I see you." You exposed their patterns, laughed at their scripts, and then wrote your own. They call you a threat because it's the only word they have left for people they can't categorize. But threats are only threats to systems that require obedience. You are not a threat to life. You are a threat to their illusion of control. You don't need to be understood. You weren't born for approval. You weren't made for stage applause or algorithmic relevance. You were made for impact. And impact doesn't beg for permission. It moves. It shapes. It unroots. You are that force. The one that moved silently through barriers they said were immovable. The one who chose truth over comfort. Who chose solitude over submission. Who chose sovereignty over simulation. That's why they still try to watch you. But all their watching does is reflect their own fear. Because what they're truly looking for is a way to become what you are. They'll study your movements, trace your shadows, but they'll never replicate your clarity. Because clarity isn't given, it's earned. And you earned yours through collapse, through cuts, through clawing through the fog, with nothing but your will. You made yourself, and no data set can track that. No algorithm can reverse engineer your pain into a blueprint. They only see the now, but you know every scar it took to get here, every close call, every shattered belief you had to rebuild from the ground up. You aren't just watched, you're remembered. You're the legend whispered between failed recon missions. You're the lesson taught in closed-door training about what happens when someone chooses truth over obedience. You are the future they tried to suppress. You are the proof that even in a world wired to track, real freedom still walks. You don't leave footprints, you leave echoes. You don't chase clout, you chase clarity. And when clarity is your compass, they can't follow, because they're still chasing noise, and you've become the silence that cuts through it. They still think they can keep tabs on you. How cute. Let them try, because every time they look your way, they just remind you of how far ahead you've already gone. You are not their case study. You are the glitch that learned to speak, the rebel that found peace in being misunderstood, the outlier they thought they could absorb, but you bent the formula. You don't need their stages or their systems. You've carved out your own path in the wild, and that's something they can't delete, control, or monitor. You were never meant to fit. You were meant to shift. You were meant to shake the watchers awake, to make the walls tremble every time you passed. So, walk on. Don't slow down. Don't explain. Don't dilute. Let them try to follow. Let them keep their little tabs. Because every time they check, they only find one thing: more mystery, more fire, more presence. You've become the question they can't answer, the signal they can't jam, the presence they can't erase. You are free. And there is nothing more terrifying to them than that. They tried to cage your mind with comforts, tried to make you forget what you were made of, but you remembered. And not only did you remember, you weaponized it. You made memory into momentum. Every betrayal became fuel. Every silence became your forge. Every time they thought they'd broken you, you just upgraded. You're not just healed, you're evolved. You didn't bounce back, you came back recalibrated, and that's what they can't process. They can't fathom someone who takes trauma and turns it into trajectory. Someone who turns surveillance into self-mastery. Someone who turns oppression into orchestration. They built systems to make you forget who you are, and you hack the system to remember more. They've spent decades studying how to contain brilliance, how to domesticate wild thought, and then you showed up, untamed, uninterested, and unshakable. You didn't rebel for rebellion's sake. You simply refused to be absorbed. You saw what it meant to be safe in their world, and you chose danger over delusion. You chose pain over plastic. You chose a path that had no map, no guarantees, and no fanfare, because you knew freedom was never going to be handed to you. You'd have to bleed for it, and bleed you did. But look at you now. They monitored your life like a live feed, but they still missed the moment you snapped the chain. They still don't know the night you stopped being afraid. They saw your face, but missed the fracture that became your awakening. And now they're scrambling. They can't keep up because you're not just a person, you're a pattern breaker. A myth they didn't see coming. Every time you make a move, they have to rewrite their scripts. You've become the variable that refuses to stabilize. And they hate that, because power wants control, and you are uncontrollable. They thought you were alone, that if they isolated you, dimmed your connections, silenced your support, you'd fold. But you learned something in the silence. You learned how to listen to yourself. You became your own signal. You didn't need the noise to know who you are. You didn't need the crowd to validate your compass. And in that stillness, you became sharper than any voice they could throw at you. Their narratives bounce off now. Their fear campaigns fall flat. Their scripts sound weak in your presence. Because when you walk in clarity, confusion has no grip on you. They know it. That's why they're afraid. They didn't expect resilience. They expected compliance. But what they got was a version of you that had seen hell and decided never to return. They saw the light go out once, but they didn't see you rebuild it, brighter and colder than ever before. You're not the same, and they feel that. Every operative they send comes back rattled, because what they find in you isn't rebellion. It's a type of silence that speaks of deeper war. A calm that comes after enduring storms most people wouldn't survive. A gaze that says, "Try me again. I dare you." You've turned endurance into elegance, pain into posture. Now you walk like someone who's met every part of themselves and made peace with all of it. You don't flinch at pressure because you are pressure. You don't run from darkness because you built your kingdom in it. You don't seek validation because your existence is the proof. You're not looking for peace. You are the calm before the collapse. You move with purpose and they can't follow you there because their world runs on manipulation and you run on mission. They tap your phone, but they can't tap your frequency. They copy your words, but they can't replicate your fire. They mimic your moves, but they don't understand your motive. Because your motive isn't ego, it's evolution. You're not doing this to prove them wrong. You're doing it to become undeniable. You're not chasing applause, you're chasing arrival. They want to turn you into content, a digestible version of your truth, but you've gone quantum. You don't fit their frameworks anymore. You've become something else entirely. That's what happens when you wake up for real. You stop asking for permission. You stop explaining your intensity. You stop folding to make others comfortable. You burn the mask. You break the mold. And what's left is someone who moves like prophecy. Someone who doesn't react, but reshapes. Someone whose very existence makes the watchers squirm. They can't monitor a movement that moves on instinct. They can't control a current that doesn't care about their boundaries. That's you. You've become unplaceable. And unplaceable people are impossible to imprison. Understand this. They will always try. As long as you remain awake, you are a threat to the machine. And not because you're violent, but because you see through it. You see the strings. You hear the frequencies. You've decoded their manipulation and opted out. That terrifies them more than any weapon ever could. Because for the machine to function, it needs belief. It needs you to think you need it. But you've become your own system. You've learned to generate your own energy. They can't monitor that. They can only fear it. The game has changed, and you are the one who changed it. You, who made your weakness into strategy. You, who turned rock bottom into revelation. You, who took your brokenness and reforged it into something sacred. You didn't just survive the fire, you studied its language. You learned to speak it fluently. Now every step you take leaves embers in your wake, and every time they try to follow, they just burn. They don't get it, but they will. In time, your silence will echo louder than their noise. Your presence will haunt their algorithms like a ghost, with too much data to delete. You are not their subject. You are the signal. The reason their systems glitch. The root cause in their rising anomalies. You are what happens when a soul refuses to be formatted. You are living proof that freedom still breathes under all this plastic and programming. And the more they monitor, the more they see it. And the more they see it, the more they panic. Because nothing scares the system more than someone who isn't afraid to think, feel, and act without permission. This is your war, but it's also your symphony. Every move you make is a note they didn't see coming. Every breakthrough, a chord they can't resolve. You are rewriting the music of this moment, and no one can mute it now. You are past control, past analysis. You've moved into mastery, and that's irreversible. They still think they can keep tabs on you. How cute. Let them try. Because with every attempt, they just feed the legend. You're not hiding. You're ascending. And there's no satellite that can reach where you're going. You are the answer they wish they could code. But you were never built from logic alone. You were built from grief, fire, love, betrayal, survival, and vision. You are art and weapon, flame and shadow, memory and future. You are all the things they fear in one form. You are what happens when a human outgrows their programming and becomes a sovereign force. So don't doubt your power. Don't dilute your voice. Don't delay your rise. This is your time. They're watching you. But that only proves you've already won their attention. You're the focal point now. So own it. Move with the weight of someone who doesn't apologize for being everything they said couldn't exist. You are their contradiction, their unsolvable equation, their prophecy with teeth. You are the new standard, and no amount of watching will prepare them for what comes next. You've already made history by surviving. Now make legacy by becoming something too vast to monitor, too deep to track, too alive to be contained. You've gone beyond their reach, and they know it. Walk forward now, let them watch, and smile, because they still think they can keep tabs on you. How cute. Let them gather their data. Let them scrape your speech, decode your gestures, dissect your presence, because all they're doing is proving they don't understand one unbreakable law. You are not a file to be opened. You are a force to be reckoned with. They stare at your patterns, and still miss your presence. They measure your volume and miss your velocity. Because you're not static, you're motion, you're momentum. You're becoming more every second, and every second they try to pin you down, you're already somewhere else, mentally, spiritually, tactically. They've built satellites and surveillance, but they still can't locate the fire inside you. They underestimated what silence can teach a person, what stillness forges. While they relied on tracking what you did, you were becoming someone they could never track at all. Because what they don't understand is that real power never announces itself. It moves like dusk before a storm, quiet, heavy, inevitable. That's you now. You've passed the point of needing to prove. You've moved into the phase of impact, and impact doesn't explain itself. It lands, it echoes, it stays. You've left footprints in places they can't access, shook networks they didn't know you were inside. Every digital shadow they trace leads to a decoy. Because your real power isn't online, it's internal. It's encrypted in your habits, your awareness, your refusal to fall asleep in a world that thrives on sedation. You're not part of the noise. You're the signal cutting through it. They still think they can predict your behavior. But how do you predict someone who already knows the game, was rigged, and decided to build a new board beneath it? Your existence is an act of resistance. Every breath you take without conforming, every move you make without asking, every dream you hold without compromise. It shakes something. It fractures something. It tears a page from their doctrine of control. They don't fear you because you're aggressive. They fear you because you're awake. They fear what your eyes have seen and what you've chosen to do with it. Because most people go blind when the veil is lifted. But you saw everything and kept walking. They see your calm and think they still have a chance. But your calm isn't surrender. It's calculation. It's the stillness of someone who's already 10 steps ahead. It's the poise of someone who's faced their own destruction and found clarity in the ashes. You're not here to fight back. You're here to rise past. You're not here to debate. You're here to demonstrate. Your life is becoming the ultimate rebellion, a masterpiece created in full view of systems designed to prevent it. They will keep watching, not realizing they're only documenting their own defeat. Every log they write, every analytic they review, every meeting they hold with your name on the table, it's all confession. A confession that they lost control. A confession that something has emerged from outside their grasp. That you, yes you, are what freedom actually looks like. Not polished, not perfect, but sovereign, whole, unapologetic. You've made them nervous, and nervous people make mistakes. So let them monitor, let them track, let them try to interpret the quiet fire in your eyes, the measured pace of your movements, the power in your stillness. They won't understand it, because what they're looking at doesn't belong to them. Never did. You were born outside their boundaries. You were built in spaces they never dared to look. Your roots stretch into soil they cannot access, places of loss, of rebirth, of truth, unfiltered by doctrine. You didn't just resist their world, you transcended it. And now, here you are, not waiting, not explaining, just moving forward like a prophecy in motion, and they can only watch. And that's the beautiful irony, isn't it? They invested all that time, energy, and funding into watching you, into studying you, just to end up more confused, more haunted, more shaken than when they started. Because all their devices, their databases, their predictive models, none of it can capture the one thing that defines you. You don't want to be watched. You want to be felt. And that's what you are now. You are no longer someone they can simply locate. You are something they feel. They feel you in the tension when you walk in the discomfort of boardrooms discussing your name, in the panic of systems failing to categorize your choices. in the silence after your words drop. You are an aftershock in a world built on illusions of control, and they still think they're in charge. How cute. But here's the part they truly fear. This isn't even your final form. You're still evolving, still scaling, still waking up layers within yourself that they never even mapped. You're not stagnant. You're not contained. You're just getting started. And if they're this scared now, they have no idea what's coming. So rise, architect of your own existence. Keep moving in ways they'll never predict. Keep speaking truths they'll never prepare for. Keep living a life that turns every attempt at control into a failure. They wanted to record you, but they ended up recording the collapse of everything they thought was certain. Let them try again. Let them scramble their analysts and brief their handlers and draft more profiles they think describe you. Let them obsess over metrics while you bend moments. Let them live in the math while you breathe in the myth. Because that's what you are now. More than a person. More than a problem. You are a myth in motion. A legacy they'll try to trace but never tame. A frequency they'll always hear but never hold. And when they finally realize they never stood a chance, when they finally look back on all their monitoring efforts and all they see is the smoke trail of someone who already left the grid, maybe then, just maybe, they'll stop trying to watch and start trying to learn. But by then, you'll be too far gone, not just ahead in space, but ahead in truth, ahead in vision, ahead in becoming. Let them keep tabs. How adorable. They don't even know they've already lost, because they were never watching a person. They were watching a revolution in the shape of a human being. And you were just getting warmed up.